Well, first and foremost, I want to welcome you. My name is Natalie Wilkerson. I'm the Career Center Coordinator here at Tacoma Community College. And I'm going to go over some basic resume and cover letter writing tips in this class today. If at any time you want to have more in-depth or follow-up, you can make an appointment with me. I'm over in the Career Center in Building 7. You just need to walk up to the front desk and they will direct you to making an appointment. All right. So what is the purpose of a resume? There are many purposes for a resume, but basically a resume is just a way for you to create a snapshot of yourself, obviously, hopefully get a job, and to show off what your particular skills and abilities are. So, and ultimately, the number one thing about a resume and doing a really good resume is to get yourself in the door. All right, so first and foremost, I passed around 3 different sheets. And one of the sheets is an actual job that's available here at Tacoma Community College right now. And this job is they're looking for what's called SIs or tutors. And it's a position that students can apply for. It's open. It's actually continuously open too. So I was going to use this as an example of how to best research when you're applying for a job and when you're creating a resume. First thing you want to do is you do want to print out the job description or open up the job description in a separate window. And when you do this, you'll be able to cater your resume specifically to the content that they're looking for. And what I do quickly is when I get a job description and I'm working with a student, is I take a few minutes to highlight the most important areas on the actual job description. So for here, the most important areas would be, what are your essential functions in the job? What is it that you'll be doing? What are the minimum qualifications? And the minimum qualifications are the ones that say, you absolutely have to have these things in order for you to even be considered for an interview. And then I sit down with the student and I take a couple minutes to go over, and I gave you an example of this, so you can do this for any job. You want to kind of go through the job description step by step, list the skills and experience, and they'll have it clearly laid out in every job description usually, that they are needed by the employer, and how you would qualify for these. It might be in your own words, or it might be in different experiences. If they're looking for excellent customer service, maybe you were a barista or something, and so you're like, yes, I've had the customer experience. So you briefly go through the job description and write through a list of different skills and abilities that you have. Okay, here's something interesting. How much time on average do you think an employer spends looking at a resume? Anybody? Just guess. Yep.
Isn't it something like 30 seconds?
It is. It's 30 seconds. So that's why your resume has to grab the attention of the potential employer right away. All right, now I'm going to go over some of the basics of resume writing. And I have given you an example in your packet of what's called a skills-based resume. All the sheets are in the back if you want to grab them. And this is a good basic resume for students who are starting out, who might not have a lot of job experience, but they do have relevant skills. Because here at TCC, if you're taking a computer user class, or if you're taking an English class, or maybe you're taking a business class, those are up-to-date relevant skills that you can highlight in a resume. So this is we're going to go over some of the basics. Okay, first and foremost, always bold and have your contact information at the top. You can put on there the desired job title. That's what I mean by catering each resume to what you're applying for. And the summary of the qualifications, the nice thing about if you actually know of a job that you're applying for is they will give you the summary of the qualifications for the job in here, and then you just need to show them how your skills and abilities match up with their summary. Accomplishments and experience. A lot of times you can also change this. If you don't have a lot of experience, maybe you volunteered. So it could be your volunteer experience, and if you don't have a ton of accomplishments yet, like you haven't had a large job history, even the jobs that you did have, even if they weren't for pay, they're all relevant experience, and it's just putting them in order. And then, of course, we want to highlight your education because you're all students, and that's awesome. The other thing I'm going to talk about is if you have more of an in-depth resume, it can go to 2 pages. It just looks at it a little bit differently. You might want to break the jobs up into different areas, talk a little bit more about your professional experiences or some of the things that you've accomplished on the job. Always remember that if you do go to 2 pages, make sure that your name is in the captions on both pages in case they get separated. These are just some real basic things. Click through here. All right, so to recap, when you are going to make your resume, you always want to research. So if you were applying for a job at TCC, make sure you got on the TCC website, researched about TCC, researched about where the position is located. Maybe you could even discover from the website who would be your immediate report to, or your boss, or who's the head of that department, and kind of look. Anywhere that you go, there's probably going to be some sort of a website or something that'll give you a little bit more information about the job before you write your resume. Use the keywords, and again, those are usually listed in the job description, and tailor your resume to each job. So that's just recapping. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about language. The nature of a resume is very different from an English paper. And when I sat down to do my resume, it was hard for me to switch from writing as if I was writing an essay to writing as if I was trying to get a job. And the major difference about a resume is that you used action verbs a lot of times. So if I had a job preparing an event or something like that, I would say I organized an event for student services for 250 plus students. I developed a better plan for resume writing. So action verbs are important. Also, no pronouns. And it's really kind of a switch for our brains, but you just need to make statements that instead of I designed something, it's just designed a brochure for services. So you can start with an action verb and move with no pronouns. Okay, the other thing, be consistent. So if, don't abbreviate. So you might know what TCC is, but a lot of people might not know that that's Tacoma Community College. You might know that you got a bachelor's in science, but again, other people might not know what that means. So be consistent, no abbreviations. And no complete sentences. They just need to be brief statements. Bullet points. Bullet points are a nice way, since you are just giving brief statements. Bullet points kind of help you to get your thought across. Just the one thing that you want to make sure is that you are consistent in your use of bullet points. Never switch between different types of bullet points. So if you see here, they said they communicated university policy, they coordinated monthly education and social programs, they co-led, they enhanced, and they developed. It's just quick little brief snapshots of what you did on your particular job. One good thing to do is if you had a job, say you were a barista at a coffee shop, just briefly write down as many of the things that you did in one day. You communicated to customers, you used customer service, you had to balance your till, so you did the financial part of it. And then give each person a little snapshot of what you did on that particular job. Style. White space, like on the example I gave you, it's better to have, if I'm going to read this in 30 seconds, it's better to have white space than too much verbiage. Some of this stuff is pretty obvious, but nowadays, a lot of times you won't be turning in resumes directly to a person, but if you do take the time to use a nice quality paper, just so that it gives you that great first impression. And when you pick a font, pick one that is one of the more common and well-known. You don't want anything that is like the Jokerman or Papyrus, something, the plainer the better, because they might actually scan it into a computer too. Again, on the bullet points, I'm just going to talk briefly about the consistency. So if you have 4 bullet points for each one or 3 bullet points, just making sure that it looks good to the eye. And that your margins, so if you did a 1-inch margin for your education, and be a 1/2-inch margin going into your bullet points. Acceptable font size. 10, 11, and 12 are the most acceptable font size. If you have a lot of job experience, you could push it to the 10 and 11. If you don't, keep it at a nice 12 because you don't want it too small for the reader to read. And 14 is the maximum you can do, but probably only for names and then the headers. Okay, what not to include. I put this in kind of to be funny. A photo. It's just not appropriate, unless, of course, you're applying to be an actor or actress. Then, of course, it's appropriate. Personal information, physical descriptions, spelling errors. Have someone proof it. If you need a proofer, come to the Career Center. We can proof it for you. Never talk about salary in a resume. That's just some of the things that are not appropriate. Inconsistent formats, again, like bulleting in too far or not far enough. Abbreviations. Okay, that's just in a nutshell. And now let's talk a little bit about cover letters. I didn't put an example of a cover letter in your packet, but what a cover letter basically does is it's a way of introducing yourself and helping you to stand out from the other applicants. So first, one thing that people sometimes forget is they actually forget to put their contact information on the cover letter. So I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. Don't forget your own personal contact information. And if you can do the research and figure out who the hiring manager is or who the human resources director is that will be reading it, if you have a name, it looks better. If not, you could put hiring committee. But more than likely you'll know the address of where it's going to, even if it's in an email. It just looks more professional. Okay, so let's talk about the first paragraph of a cover letter. The first paragraph of a cover letter is how you make the case for how you heard about the job, what you know about the job, and why you want the job. So this first paragraph just kind of is a way of introducing yourself to the person that's reading it. The second paragraph is where you go in more depth and you say why you are a great match for this job. And sometimes I tell students that if you can reread over the actual job posting or the job description and use some of the stuff that you gained off of as you wrote about yourself and how you're qualified for it, that's the information that you could put in this second paragraph. You want to tell them why are you a great fit to be an SI leader at TCC. You're passionate about the students at TCC, you're a good fit, you've been at TCC for over a year, you understand the systems of TCC, things like that. So you want to stand out. The second paragraph is where you stand out from the rest. The third paragraph, click too fast. There we go. The third paragraph is how you make the close. And a lot of times it's just saying, I would love to speak with you further about this position. You can contact me. This person only put their phone number. I would put my email address too. Nowadays, you're just as often going to be you'll be contacted most likely by phone for the interview, but also by email for if they have a quick question. So don't forget that. And also make sure, call your cell phone or have your friend call your cell phone. You don't want any silly ringtones on there or anything that kind of might be difficult for them to understand. So make sure that your cell phone or your home phone is in great, professional sounding. Okay, now this is really signature on it. Okay. Electronic resumes. A lot of times these days, and even if you apply at TCC, it's going to be electronic. You're not going to be doing paper. You would be doing attachments in a PDF format, and more than likely for other jobs, you might be doing your cover letter might be cut and paste into an email. Quickly, a few things for consistency purposes. If they ask, whatever they ask for on the directions, make sure you save your resume in that form. If they're asking for text format, you save it in text format. If they want it as a PDF, save it as a PDF. It should be on the very bottom of the actual job description of how they want it. TCC's, it's just uploaded. So, couple consistency things, always put the job title in the subject line. We get a ton of emails a day, and I'm sure other people do too. So you want to make sure that you put the actual position that you're applying for in case they have quite a few different positions opening. Some mistakes that I've seen of people that job description or things that I've looked at is when someone might have applied for 3 different positions in the college and then they forgot to tell me which position they were actually applying for, and then I just skip right over their resume because obviously they're not invested in the particular position that I'm hiring for. So again, try to figure out who you're sending it to. So if you have any information about there, and then it's the same letter again. And don't forget your contact information. They'll have your email, but you want to make sure that they have a way to contact you by phone also. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a positive online image. This is huge in today's society. Take a look to Google yourself and see if there's anything about you out there that someone maybe posted or is inaccurate about yourself. Look at your Facebook page. Make sure your privacy settings are set to private so that people can't look at your personal life. Take a look at the name of your actual email address. You don't want something that would just say, you know what, I'm not interested in looking at this person because of their email address. I also tell some people, some email, you can get a Gmail account or a Yahoo for free. So if you're doing an intensive job search and looking for jobs, sometimes just open up a more professional email that you send out just for job searches. That way, anything that comes in there, you won't be full of garbage of different things. It'll just be job related. So if you think about it, it might be good. You have your personal email and then you have your job search email, and just check them all the time. And then I'm just going to double check a couple things. So if you're going to send out a resume, you're going to walk in, cold call, make sure you have some nice paper. Don't paper clip it. Just make sure your name's on each section of it because it could get lost. Don't staple it in case they have to feed it through a computer to read. And usually don't fold it. So if you can, put it in a manila envelope and hand it flat in case it does, or if you do have to mail it, it'll feed into computers better that way. But a lot of times you're not even going to do that. You're just going to apply online for different positions. And then just double check, get a friend or a relative to kind of look at your word usage, look at your spelling. Sometimes when we read our own things, we forget words or drop words that we didn't realize that we're doing. So it's always good to have someone double check all your information for you. Double and triple check your name, address, and contact information. And then follow directions. It's huge. The directions will be usually laid out for you. Make sure you do everything that they've asked you. If it asks for a resume and a cover letter and maybe a statement of diversity, make sure you have all 3 things. If you don't, then it would be unaccepted as an applicant. And that is it for this part of it. I'm going to open it up for questions. I know it's kind of just a basic overview of resume writing, so if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them at this time. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
What's the thank you letter? Is that after you?
Yes. So the thank you letter is, once you have gotten an interview, make sure you write yourself a brief note. First when you go into, that's a different kind of class, but when you go into the interview, always take a pad of paper and a pencil or pen. And when they each person introduce themselves, so write down their names so that you can send either one thank you note that covers the group or a thank you note to the particular person that interviewed you. It just leaves a good impression, and it's very professional to afterwards thank them. Or I've also received email thank yous, which works just as great. An email thank you, if you have an email of the person that interviewed you, just saying thank you for your time. I'm really interested in the job, and I'm excited to hear more about it in the future. It just keeps your name on the forefront too. So, there was another question over here.
About references.
References?
How would that format into?
Well, lately it seems that what I would do is I would prepare a nice reference list, and if they ask for references, of course put it on there, but if they don't, just bring it with you. I know at TCC usually there's a section if you're applying for a job here that says references, and it's sometimes 3, sometimes 4 references. And when you're choosing references, my rule of thumb is you want to pick like 2 professionals, and if it's a friend, maybe it's a friend that's removed, but someone that can really account to your skills and abilities rather than they just like you as a person, you know. So a professor would be good, an instructor, your advisor. You could make an appointment with your advisor and tell them that you're doing the job search. These are the classes that I'm taking. This is what I'm looking for. And so if they call you and say, they could say, yes, you know, they've met with me, they're a good student, they're upstanding, they're involved at TCC, they could say something good on your behalf. The other thing is that coming to things like this, meeting people, being involved in activities, and then if you do get to have a professional do some work, write some good papers, a good grade in a class, ask that instructor, would you mind if I used you as a reference? So, but it's not something that you have to actually attach as much anymore. It's more when you go into the interview, they're going to ask you for that sheet, so be prepared to hand it to them. Any other questions? All right, well, I am available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can make an appointment at the front desk under the big orange arrow, or you can just pop over and see me in the Career Center. Sometimes I have time to look at something quickly for you while I'm just sitting there. Other times I might have to have an appointment with you, but I'm always open and available for the students here at TCC. Kiko?
Yes, I have a question. I noticed there's a stack of books and resources in the Career Center. I was curious, what are those resources?
Okay, so we do have lots of books and resources in the Career Center, and they can be checked out through the library. I have an honor system that you'll walk them to the library and check them out. But I have purchased some up-to-date resume writing books, some career books, different topics, transferring universities, scholarships. So it's broken up into different sections, and we have one on internships, resumes, cover letters, and then university transfer. But all of those resources are there for you. My area is also a really good area just to kind of sit down, maybe do some homework, look at books. We've got all the computers in that area are available for you to use. If you do want to help applying for a job and you need to print out a quick resume, we have printing capability also. So, and I do have some nice paper. If you don't have nice paper, I've got some paper you can use. So feel free to come hit us up for some resources. We're here for you. So, anybody else? Okay. If you want to ask me specific questions, I'm available. So, thanks for coming to the workshop.